So I kind of want to try and do this each week with we're going to call this like the scouting roundtable. And this week we're going to talk about like our fall winners from events this fall that we had. But like maybe next week we can talk through stuff or talk through guys from tournaments and some JUCO guys the following week or something like that. But just trying to have a segment here where we can talk through players that we've seen, prospects that we like from recent events or things that are relevant at that time.
Danny Mackey III and Monroe Evans, they both came to our Chicagoland fall ID at Ozinga.
I think
and then
Brady was there too.
Brady came to the Chicagoland Open as well, the Chicagoland Fall ID as well, but he did not come to the unsigned senior.
Yeah.
But Danny Mackey, I mean, first off, just that Chicagoland Fall ID at Ozinga, it had a limited number of players, but every single guy there seemed like a college caliber player, and it was an open event, so that's great to see. Danny Mackey's got levers for days. He also is a two-way guy, but I really like the upside with the bat. The long levers, and it's really loose, really easy, balanced. He had a max distance of 344 and a max exit velocity of 90.1. But I think that I used to coach at a JUCO. Like if that was a guy I could get my hands on and get him a ton of reps and add, maybe 20 pounds in a hurry to him, I think there's a high ceiling with Danny Mackey. And then Monroe Evans from Morgan Park also came to that event, came back to the unsigned senior. We wanted them to come back to the unsigned senior so that they could be seen by coaches that were going to be at that event. So Monroe showed all kinds of hand strength, all kinds of bat speed, swings the bat with intent. There is some anger almost with him at the plate, which you like to see if it's controlled, right? You don't want to see it all over the place and wild, but controlled intent was good to see, and all kinds of bat speed. And then you mentioned him, Peter Brady Holland from Mount Carmel, an infielder that also was there at 2026, however. Danny Mackey and Monroe Evans are 2025s. But Brady Holland just showed really good actions. I love the way he kind of presented the glove on the infield, the way he moved around, played on the move, body control, really, really, really athletic double play turn. If you watch the video, decent runner. So he's one to watch there. I don't know if you guys have anything else you want to touch on with those two guys, but, or three guys.
Yeah, no, I mean, you nailed it right on the head. Like, I think there was 6 kids at that event, and pound for pound, that was one of the most talented, each kid was a college caliber guy for sure. Danny, yeah, no, I really liked it at the plate. I think you're right. He just needs to, gain a little bit of weight, and the strength and the power will come. But I really like the operation, and I actually really like the way it moves around first base too. He moves really well for his size, uses his levers well. The arm plays too, he can play lacrosse, fielding the bunt, he's a pitcher, so the arm works. Monroe Evans really, really, really liked it at the plate, tons of intent. The blast numbers were pretty stupid. The bat speed, the hand speed, the measurable. And I mean, the kid is also one of the nicest kids I've met on the circuit. He was cheering for kids, during their round of BP and high-fiving them and patting them on the back. You just don't see that. And then Brady, I thought Brady was probably the best defender of that day. He really stood out on the infield for me, supernatural, fluid defender. And I actually like it at the plate too. I think he's got a chance to hit. But yeah, definitely will look to stay on the infield moving forward. But yeah.
You actually get in there and get to know these guys. When it is a smaller event, you get to talk to them. You get to ask them about their high school ball. You get to ask them about what's going on in the off season. Are they playing other sports? Whatever it may be. Tyler, did you have anything else on those guys? Or did you want to move on to anybody from the unsigned senior?
Oh, I think with Brady, it's interesting. He goes to Mount Carmel. For me, maybe an early look ahead, Mount Carmel to me is one of the most interesting teams heading into next spring. I mean, they were a game away from going to state this past year. They lost to Pravi, who ended up winning state. But, man, the more talent that team – it just seems like that team has so much talent, all over their roster. So, interested to see if Brady's able to, get some varsity action this year for Mount Carmel.
Regardless, he should provide quality depth piece there on the infield. And I know they have some good infielders already. But, yeah,
absolutely.
I guess Gavin, if you don't mind, we'll just kind of move over to the fall. We run 3 fall events at the max. Basically, starting with the first weekend in October, we start with the older guys, and then systematically go from the unsigned seniors to the class of 2026. And then our last event in the fall to wrap it up, we run the underclass showcase with 27s and 28s. The unsigned senior showcase, there are still some quality 2025s on the board. And I think what really jumped off the page to me with some of these position players from the unsigned senior was the athletes that are still on the board. I'm going to start with Quaylen Petty. He goes to St. Lawrence. We saw St. Lawrence a couple times last year. They are loaded. Positionally every year their roster is really, really good. And to crack that lineup apparently is very tough because I don't think I saw Petty last year in the spring. But regardless, he is a name to know and to follow, and one that we would love to see, hit in a game, play in a game, just to see what's real here, because he ran a 6.4560. That's one of the top run times we've had on our lasers all year. And I'm talking All-American game. I'm talking Super 60, future games. That's an elite run time right there on our lasers. He also jumped a 36-inch vertical, which is, I would say, top 1% of all the guys that we had run and do verticals on our Swift testing this entire year. And then he was also 90 miles an hour from the outfield, and at the plate, he had all kinds of twitch. What I saw presently with the swing was a direct swing with twitch, with athleticism. He stays on top of the ball. And if he can continue to kind of flatten and level that path out to get some of those ground balls to turn into line drive backspin, you really might have something there with him. So Quaylen Petty jumped off the page. First guy I wanted to mention. Nolan Gala was another high-level athlete. He ran a 6.87. He jumped 37 inches, which is one of the top jumps I've seen doing this. He's also got tools across the board. He bounces around the infield. It's 88 across. It played with a little effort and was kind of the accuracy wasn't necessarily there, but there's all kinds of arm strength and talent. And then at the plate, there's all kinds of whip and athleticism in the swing, and he had a 95 mile an hour max exit velo. So those were 2 guys there. And then I know Tyler Trapp, as well, at Lane Tech. Pete, I know you got to see him. You got to see Lane Tech last spring. I know you were evaling hitters at this event. Anything you wanted to mention on Tyler?
Yeah, Tyler was he was part of that junior future game team. That was my first year doing it. That was probably my favorite team we've ever had. Demarion Butler's on that team too. I'm going to talk about him a little later, unsigned senior. But yeah, Tyler, he just continuously gets better. Pretty physical now too. He definitely looks like he's put in work in the weight room, but it was guyish.
Well, I see he's got a 101 max in his
average,
profile.
honestly.
He had a 101 max from the unsigned senior, so that's a great call out. You clearly know him or have seen those numbers in the past. So yeah, he did have, I'm looking at it now, Tyler Trapp had a 101 max exit velocity and an average of 93.9, which is a very high average. Speaking of just being guyish and living on that barrel, which I think is kind of what you were getting at. He's added that quality strength. He's got the compact, muscular but athletic build, and it just keeps getting a little stronger. And yeah, it was it just seemed loud. Every ball off his bat was just loud.
Yeah,
so
it was a wake up call. I just stood out in a lot of different ways. I mean, 6'9" runner at that size too, and he took probably the biggest swing I saw all spring at that Chicago Public League Championship. A double over the center fielders had to tie the game. That was a ton of fun. So yeah, I mean, the strength is on display in game, but I would say he's even gotten stronger since then. He looked a little different. He looked like he was putting in some work in the summer. So
what he did at the Chicagoland Open or the Chicagoland Fall ID and then came back to the unsigned senior, just like Tyler Trapp, he had a 101 max exit velocity. They both were the top leaders in average bat speed from that event. I think when you start looking at max bat speed, it can get a little. I don't know the right way to put it, but I just like looking at the averages when you really start to break down the blast, because that's going to give you the most valid number. It is BP. These guys can change their swings on a ball in the inner half, and, right where they're looking for it, they can let it loose. And, technically it's going to be a little different than how they'd swing it in a game, versus a ball that's maybe a little bit on the outer half. So I love looking at the average, when we start breaking down the blast numbers, but I mean, Monroe Evans averaged 79.9 mile per hour bat speed. And then Tyler Trapp was second with 74.8. So they both led that event. The bat speed was evident. And that's what I love about being able to mix in these blast numbers is, man, you watch a kid hit, I'm looking for bat speed. Like, that is one of the top things I'm looking for is bat speed. And how easy does a kid get to his bat speed? And then we're not only able to watch it in real time, make notes on it, right? If we like their bat speed, slow bat, fast bat, quick bat, whatever, whippy, then we're able to get the numbers and we're able to cross-check everything. And it's just a great way to validate your eyes. Or, there's some guys that swing really easy and really balanced and really smooth, and it doesn't look as fast in person as maybe it really is or what it registers. And you go back and you look at the blast numbers, you're like, wow. Like, okay, and he's doing it that easy. So we're really fortunate to be able to have that as kind of like a backup, and just something to lean on with these numbers, because, it's all about the eye test. It's all about going out there and looking at it with your own eyes in person, seeing how the ball jumps off the bat, seeing the carry it gets, seeing the backspin versus topspin versus flare versus hook, whatever it may be, but then you're able to actually look at the numbers, which I love. So sorry to go on a tangent there.
Yeah, no, I love how you gave the numbers there. Like,
yep.
Monroe led at 79, 78, and then Tyler 74. Like, 74 is no joke. And for Monroe to be leading it by that, like 5 miles an hour, like, that just speaks to him and how crazy his bat speed is, because 74 is like, that's pretty legit. Especially for an average. Like, a lot of times you won't even see 74 as a max, and so just to be around that 80 mark from like Monroe, that's like super 60-ish numbers. Like,
because if you even go further and look from Monroe Evans leading it at 79.9, and you look at who's in third place, they're at 69.9. That's a 10 mile per hour difference in average bat speed. And the guy in third is Colin Roche, who I think could easily deserve a mention here. We could highlight guys for days and days and days, and I think we should try to as much as we can, and on here, just giving as many guys love as possible, I think is great. But the 2026 event, why don't you guys take us away on that? Class of 26, it was the second event we ran at the Max this fall, the second weekend of our events there. In October, all 2026s. What is that going to be? They're juniors right now. They're looking forward to their junior season. This is a big season for them. Who'd you guys like?
Yeah, I'll kick things off here. For me, it was Ryan Flanagan, out of Lincoln Way East. Left-handed arm, might have been my favorite arm I saw all fall. When you watch it, it's very clean, very athletic. And I saw, I asked him after his pen, like, where do you go to high school? And he's like, Lincoln Way East. And I'm like, man, I didn't think I saw him on any, box scores when we're doing daily roundups and stuff like that from the spring. And, I asked him, like, do you get varsity innings? He's like, actually, I was rebounding from an injury. So kid kind of came out of nowhere for us, or at least me personally. And the thing I really liked, again, just how athletic the operation was, and like, there's a solid foundation there with all four of his pitches. And it's not, super polished by any means, but it makes sense. Like, kids rebounding from an injury. So for me, Ryan Flanagan's a guy that I'm really excited to track, throughout the winter and into the spring next year. Hopefully we get out and see the Griffins in the spring and just see how it translates in game.
Yeah, and I saw a couple, I was on hitters that day, so I got to watch Rhett Harris. He was a big right-handed hitter, and kind of like Drew and Pete were talking about earlier, like the averages are such an important thing to look at rather than the max sometimes. And Rhett was on the barrel throughout the round, and I think that kind of shows with your average exit velocity. It was 92.9 miles an hour, which is really, really impressive. And I just like the way that it worked at the plate. He was a really strong hitter, had some power, had some juice to the middle pull side of the field. And then Colin Quinn is another kid.
Looks very hitterish and kind of understands how to control at bats. Was the quick kind of synopsis that I had on him. Was looked like a hitter. That's a guy that if we're kind of anticipating in the spring, I could see him making some noise this spring at the high school level.
And then Quinn Roberts was the last guy that I saw there that I really liked. Upside frame, had some power, was juicing the ball. 99-mile exit velocity, 373-foot max distance, and then, an average bat speed of 78 miles an hour. Like we mentioned before, it's really, really impressive. So good stuff from that event.
Yeah, it's an underclass showcase. It was our last event of the fall. Really, really good way to kind of cap off the fall. And reminded me somewhat of our Chicagoland Fall ID that we ran. It was with all the players that were there, 27s and 28s. There were a bunch of guys that are going to be college players down the road. A lot of just solid follows from both classes, the 27s and the 28s. The 27s, though, I think they're just, for me, they're a little more present. They're sophomores. They are the class that we are going to be looking at very, very closely for the future games for next year, and it starts already. And one guy that I thought firmly put his name on just like that follow list that we're going to have to go see, does he play varsity next year? If he doesn't, like, what is he going to do in the summer? And that's Julio Ayala from Montini Catholic. Left-handed hitting infielder and just really looks the part, checks a lot of boxes. I like the swing. It's fluid. It's athletic. It works. He uses the whole field. It's balanced. Infield wise, like he can stick on the infield. He's got the actions. He's got the tools. If he can continue to trim down his 60 time, he's just going to continue to help his prospect status. So like that foot speed to me right now for playing up the middle, if he can continue to get that better, and that's something that he's got the full off season now to work on. We saw him in October. Like, let's see what he can do in November, December, January. See if we see him in the winter, and if not, we're gonna track him down during gameplay this spring, hopefully, if he's playing varsity, like I mentioned. Another guy that I've long liked, and he just continues to do it, is James Abaldo at Fenwick. Another middle infielder. He's a right-handed hitter. Ayala's a lefty. But Abaldo, a lot like his older brother, he just hits, it seems like. He uses the whole field. He's got a knack for the barrel. For his size, he creates a lot of whip and torque in that swing, and he's got a lot of barrel feel. And then on the infield, he's very fundamentally sound. He's got good feet. He plays through the baseball. I like him a lot. And then Sebastian Wilson, committed to Tennessee. He's our top ranked 2027 in the class. He came back out and just continues to improve every time we see him and continues to tick up his metrics. It was the best he's ever ran for us. And Peter, I don't know if you have a 60 time, or Tyler, if you have a 60 time on him. Yeah.
It was
so he
6.58.
ran a 6.58, which is down from, I want to say, a 6.7 or 6.8, which he was running before. And given that he's a 2027 with his size and frame, like he looks like he could be an impact football type player given the way he's built. Really impressive to see him run that type of 60 time. And then he just cuts it loose at the plate. He was all over the barrel, showing big pull side power, and really like him. Peter, if there's anybody or anything else you want to mention on those three guys, go ahead.
No, I mean, not too much. I did really like the not left-handed duo. Julio Ayala, the left-handed hitting infielder. Saw him last year for Montini. He was starting as a freshman at second base. I really like the swing, and I really like him on the infield too. Really like genuinely nice kid, very receptive to not criticism, but like we had kind of pulled him aside. Like his defensive round, like he was trying to do a little too much. And he's very clearly like a naturally good defender, and the actions are in there for sure. And we just pulled him aside, like, dude, you don't need to do that. Like, just be natural and just let it play, And he's like, yeah. Like eye contact was really good conversation. James Abaldo, yeah, I really like the bat there too. I thought you nailed it with him, and then Sebastian. Yeah, I think with him, it's like, like you said, he just keeps getting better. And he doesn't have like it's not the most projectable frame, right? He's not like super tall and like skinny. He's already like filled out and he's physical, but he keeps continuously getting better anyway. So yeah, I mean, that kid's a freak. Then moving down, actually, Anthony Kilnick. I think that's what I was kind of thinking of, like the left-handed hitting duo between him and Julio. Yeah, Anthony, super loose, super athletic, really, really easy. Really likes his round of BP, stays balanced, used the whole field with ease. And then, Kilnick's not an infielder, he's an outfielder, but it's still really athletic out there. It's got a really bright
he's a
future.
Joliet Catholic prospect. I didn't have a ton on him before this event, Pete, but there's a lot to work with the swing. Like, he's just a loose-bodied, fluid mover. Like, that's what his body type is. That's his movement patterns. And at the plate, like, he just needs to get stronger. Needs to continue to work on controlling the barrel and repeating the swing, but the foundation is there. But man, he jumped out to me just the way he was floating around the outfield. It's inside, it's at the max. You know, watching outfield defense, there's only so much you can get out of it inside. But you're looking at, okay, first step, you know, how does he flow to the baseball? Does he get around the baseball? Can he range? Does he have body control? Is he playing through the ball? How does he present the glove? You know, what's the arm action look like? How does he play through get to his arm? Does he have to crow hop 4 times to get to his max velo, or is it all smooth, one motion, put it on a line? And it was like, that was a college prospect I was watching doing a defensive workout in the outfield. It was ultra easy, fluid. The glove action is what did it for me. It was like ultra confident for a 2027. You just don't see a guy play through the baseball the way he did. And then the looseness in the arm and just the overall, like, I'm a guy look to it. I mean, he took one ball and I was like, Pete, like, like that's how it should look. Kind of reminded me of like how Alec Thomas looked floating around the outfield back when he was that age. And Kilnick's arm actually plays a little bit better now. Not comparing the two, just the comp that I had, or what it reminded me of, I guess, is maybe a better way to put it. But yeah, definitely stood out to me, Pete. And Tyler, I know you were working the mound that day, so give me some of your standouts on the mound.
Yeah, 2 right-handed arms for me that really just popped that day. Miles Mazanowski, I know he popped for you guys over with the bat as well, but he's a 2027 who goes to Lane Tech. It's kind of a more mature frame for what you'd see for a high school sophomore, but another guy who just kind of had a live arm. He had the hardest fastball for the event at 84 miles an hour, but it also had a ton of carry. It averaged over 17 inches of induced vertical break through the zone. So he really stood out there, and then he would pair it off with a quality slider to really play well off that fastball. And then Colin Giles is a guy that, you know, I'd never seen before, going to St. Ignatius. Really, really interested to see if this kid gets varsity innings this spring for them. Athletic mover, high-waisted, so there's probably a lot more left in the tank there, but what really stood out with Colin is just the field of spin with all of his offerings. His fastball was getting over 2,500 RPMs of spin. His slider breaking ball was getting 2,700. So pretty advanced there for a high school sophomore, but those were just my 2 guys to.
Just like some other 27s that I thought stood out in their own way, like Tanner Toback, I thought had a good day. Brandon Beasley, left-handed hitter that I hadn't seen before, has a chance. Gavin Weston's a 2028 that really stood out to me on the infield. Just looks like a ball player, and I think it was decent on the mound. Pete saying he can pitch. And then some other 28s like Johan Lasn. I don't know how I would go about pronouncing that last name. But he had big tools and kind of looked like a thoroughbred athlete just in the uniform for a 2028. They're not built like that very often. He ran a 702. He also jumped out of the gym from what I remember. And then another guy that I think has a high upside, one to watch in that 28 class is Jenner Smith, 6'1", 160, just like long, athletic, kind of that younger looking face, but I think he's going to fill out and be really physical one day and have some tools. If I'm looking here, he ran a 7.72. So also thought there was something in the bat there. So just a really good way to finish off the fall. Plenty of follows to get with moving forward. And Gavin, I know I'm going to turn it over to you here.
Yeah, we got, the St. Louis Fall ID was our last event here. And a kind of perfect way to end our fall winter segment here with, a Southern Illinois legend coming on here in a little bit with our as our guest. But yeah, Pete, I know you and I were down there. We were on reports for hitters and pitchers. But I just want to quickly talk about a couple arms that I really liked. Mick Niebrug, I think is how you say his last name. He's from Teutopolis. He was like 80 to 80 or 85 to 87 up to 88. Really big kid, but I like the way he moved. Like, it was super easy. Good arm action. Then he had a quality slider too that had low IVB, and like I think it was 2300 to 2400 RPM on the spin. So quality spin too. So I really like him. That's another arm for Teutopolis. They've got Gavin Addis, and I think there's another kid I can't think of his name right now, but.
There is.
Teutopolis has some
You're going to make me look it up because I think Austin Voorhees, and he's very talented. Yeah. He was at our Illinois State game.
Austin
and
Voorhees.
Yes. I wanted to, I had to look it up because the last name that you threw out there, and I don't know how you pronounce it either, but Mick and however you said it. Yeah, Niebrug. So
Niebrug.
He is, if you look up that last name in our system, there's 4 guys that have come through Teutopolis with that last name. I don't know if they're all brothers. I don't know if some are, cousins or whatnot, but they're all baseball players who've gone on to play in college. And yeah, that's so there's some bloodlines there and a name that I was just kind of familiar with coming through Teutopolis.
Yeah. And I think I got one more arm to mention. His name is Matthew Crownhart. He's a homeschool kid. From what I heard at the event, it sounds like he's going to be going to a high school. I can't remember which one. I'm not sure if that's been decided yet or what, but he was a left-handed arm, super easy mover. It was loose, low 80s, but like the stuff, the velo might not be there yet, but it's like a lot of these guys where he just moves so well. It's easy, it's loose. There's not a ton of effort. That like he looks like a guy that in a couple of years we'll be talking about him, and his velo is going to be mid upper 80s. So I really like that. But I think with St. Louis, with this event, talking about a couple of these arms, I love going down there because you see guys like this pop up that are quality arms that we don't really have a ton on, and it's everywhere we go. I feel like down there's always some sort of arm that pops up that is really talented, uncommitted, and they're probably from like a smaller school if they're not from that Metro East area to have. And you get to see guys like that.
To your point, they pop up out of nowhere, Gavin. Like our top 10, if you look at our top 10 class in the 2025s right now, I just pulled it up, but Brandon Menser at number 10, he's committed to Cincinnati. He's from Cesar-Valier High School, which is down there in between St. Louis and Carbondale. Very small school, but like there's multiple guys that pop up like that. And there's guys down there, I guarantee you, that we don't even know right now. Maybe they're 3-sport guys that haven't had an opportunity to get to an event, but it is just a plethora of it's an arms factory down there, it seems like.
And Pete, we've got Aiden Peterson on here. I don't know if you want to mention him. He was a West Glen kid that you saw.
Yeah.
I believe he was a big right-handed hitter.
Yeah, no, I mean, speaking, like you said it, like there's a ton of arms down there, but I was blown away with the depth of the bats at this event, especially for it only being like under 20 kids. Like there was numerous kids that I thought have a chance to play at the next level. Aiden Peterson was, first on this list here. West Glen 2027 kid, led the event in multiple different categories. He's 5'10", 211, so pretty physical. He had 101 mile-an-hour max exit velocity, an average 94. So for a 2027, that's pretty crazy. And a 373 max distance. Then Carson Parrell, he's a Collinsville kid, 2026. I really liked him. Super loose, athletic. He was all over the barrel too. Is up to 90 miles an hour. Pretty athletic-looking kid. And then, Chase Snyder, Ballmeyer catcher, 2026. He was a really good prospect from the day all around. I liked him defensively. Could swing it too. Really good kid. And then Nathan Walker, a Muscuda kid, another 2026. Just a left-handed hitter to know. He was up to 94 miles an hour and hit the ball. Furthest was just under 360. So the bats were they were swinging it. for sure.
No, yeah, I just want to mention
Yeah,
we'll be
and-
back down there
Go ahead, Drew.
at the Sports Barn this February. It's going to be our main St. Louis event that we run on the Illinois side. We'll also run an event in Peoria. But we want to see these guys because there's a ton of them, and it's a beautiful venue that we'll be at. I'm going to check the exact date right now. It's February 22nd. It's a Saturday, and we'll be at the Sports Barn, and that'll be a huge day for us. Just continuing to get follows for the spring on who we need to see down there.
Yeah, absolutely. So kind of wrapping up the fall winners and kind of transitioning now into another segment, our final one here of the day before we get into our interview with a legendary coach down here in Southern Illinois. We're going to start calling this Prospect of the Week. Our idea behind it is kind of just to try and shine more light on an uncommitted senior, uncommitted 2025. And we're all going to try and come up with different names and just kind of talk about them quickly, just to give them some more love.
Absolutely.
Take a
No,
stab at it.
I love anytime we can shout out some guys. I'm all for it. And this one, honestly, I'm surprised he's still on the market. Left-handed pitcher Franklin Kirchner. He was a second-team All-State guy for us this year after a huge spring for Conant. Helped lead Conant along with plenty of other guys they had on that squad. But he was a huge factor on the mound. He threw 65.2 innings. He was 10-1. Gave up 52 hits, struck out 82, walked 22, had a 1.81 ERA, and helped Conant to a runner-up finish there in 4A. Just a competitive low 80s lefty that can pretty much throw any pitch in any count. And Tyler or anybody else that's really dove in and seen him pitch can speak to that more. But just with how hard it is to find left-handed pitching in general, and then to find somebody that can really pitch, that had success, that pitched in big moments, that thrived in big moments, I should say, because he pitched the semifinal game to get them to the state finals. So, Tyler, if you want to just go off of that.
Yeah, me and Gavin were there. He went toe-to-toe with Ryan Sloan. Major league draft pick by the Mariners this past summer. So he also just seemed like he had a steady heartbeat that day too, which, I mean, going up against a guy you know is getting drafted. So kudos to him. No, he should be plucked. I think any school around here would be lucky to have him. But going into my prospect of the week, I'm not going too far. About 5 minutes down the road from me is Colin Roche at Naz. Catcher for the Roadrunners. He's 6'2", 184 pounds. The thing that stands out with Roche for me is just how he catches, how he manages a game back there. Saw Naz twice last spring and just really love the way he handles himself, how he handles the pitchers, handles big moments behind the dish. It's a guy that doesn't get lazy back there, which for a high school catcher, it makes sense. Even in college, you got guys that get, maybe a little lazy towards the end of the game, but that's not really Colin, at least in the looks that I've gotten of him. Like I said, stood out in the spring, stood out again in the summer when we saw him, and then was really good at our unsigned senior event this fall at the Max that Drew teased a little bit earlier. He had a 30-inch vertical jump, which for a catcher I feel like is pretty rare. He was also a sub-7 runner at the event. Was 82 miles an hour from the crowd, so he's got a strong arm to go with everything else in his game. So just really like Colin Roche's game, and excited to see where he goes at the next level.
Yeah, Chuck has long been a really good receiver of the baseball too, so I really like that shout out for Chuck. I have two. Don't get mad. I just couldn't decide which one to pick, so I'm just going to do them both. Chase Peterson, he's kind of one of the first names that comes to mind when thinking of uncommitted seniors right now. Brought him to the senior future games in Georgia. Just loud tools across the board. 6'8" runner. A super intentful right-handed swing that's all over the barrel whenever we see it, especially in batting practice. He's routinely up to 100 miles an hour. He can get up to 88 from the outfield. And he's got some pretty good blast numbers too. Did anyone see him play in the senior future games? I didn't get to catch any of that. Wasn't sure if anyone saw it.
I did. I don't have my headphones plugged in right now because my phone's about to die. But yes, he was all over the barrel. Like I thought, out of all the Illinois guys that were at the Senior Future Games, I thought Chase Peterson did more for himself than maybe anybody else, other than Julian Ashley Friedman. I thought had a really good week too, and Dominic Holton by no means was a slouch, but I just thought Chase every time I saw him was splitting a gap, hitting a double. And I love the motor he plays with. He seems like a very hard nosed kid on the field and was a great kid in the dugout. So that's what I had on him, Pete.
Nice. And then Demarion Butler, Kenwood kid. He was a junior future gamer a few years ago. Part of that team that I really loved coaching. So he's just more like he's like a compactor middle infielder. Good barrel control. He can kind of shoot the gas, more of a line drive hitter. Not a ton of pop in there yet, but I'm sure that'll come in the coming years. But I just really love the way he floats around the infield. Got a chance to see him in the Chicago Public Championship, that same game when I talked about Tyler Trapp. And he's just long been a really good defender. I'm surprised he's not plucked yet. But, yeah.
My uncommitted prospect of the week would be Ryan Lazuski. I really liked him at the state games. That's honestly the only time that I have ever seen him. He was an upside frame, that long, lanky, 6 foot, 162 pounds. And I was on left-handed hitters that day for our workout day, and I got to see him. And it was a 91 mile an hour average exit velocity, so he was on the barrel throughout. But aside from that, what I really liked was just how his pre-pitch movements looked. Like it's just super loose, super athletic. And he's got that left-hand swings, which, always good. But he's an athletic defender, too. Had clean footwork. Played, middle infield. Showed range to both sides. He's got a clean and loose arm action that looks right for an infielder. And it was 84 miles an hour across. And then in game, too, just looking back at the stats, he was 3 for 6 with a double and an RBI at that event, which he's going up against some of the best arms in the state. So that's an uncommitted 2025 right there to know, and we'll keep an eye on some of these other guys and keep doing this throughout our podcasts each week. But I think that kind of wraps it up for us here. I think it was, an awesome podcast, an awesome first podcast here with our new revamped kind of style with the bullpen. Doing an interview with a coach each week or a player, I think will be a super awesome to have, and I think it's going to continue to provide more insights for these high school players and even the parents, just to try and understand maybe the recruiting landscape, what it takes to be successful at the high school level and beyond. And I think that's our goal. I think all of us are trying to just provide insight for both the players and parents to really understand the high school landscape, recruiting, what it takes to be successful, all those kinds of things. Aside from just what we provide in the event, that's kind of our goal here.